The whole town believed she had already lost the battle before it even began. 3 children clung to her worn dress. A suitcase rested beside her boots, and every passing wagon carried away another chance at happiness. Men looked at her, then quietly walked away, until one cowboy stopped, smiled, and spoke 7 words that changed 5 lives forever. But what happened after that smile shocked the entire frontier town, and by the end of this story, you'll understand why true love isn't about finding the perfect person. It's about choosing the people everyone else leaves behind. If stories of hope, family, and second chances touch your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for more unforgettable Wild West stories. The morning sun stretched across the dusty streets of Dry Creek as wagons rolled lazily between weathered wooden buildings. Horses stood tied outside the saloon, while merchants swept dirt from their porches, pretending not to notice the woman standing near the old stagecoach stop. Clara Bennett held her youngest daughter in her arms while her 12-year-old daughter Emma stood beside her, gripping the handle of their battered suitcase. 8-year-old Tommy stayed close to his mother's skirt, glancing nervously at every stranger who passed. They had traveled for days after selling nearly everything they owned. Her husband had died from a fever 2 winters earlier, leaving behind debts instead of savings. Since then, Clara had survived by washing clothes, sewing dresses, and doing whatever honest work she could find. But every town told her the same thing. A widow with 3 children was simply too much responsibility. She had answered every advertisement for a mail-order bride, believing somewhere a lonely rancher might welcome a ready-made family. Instead, every meeting ended exactly the same. The men smiled politely until they counted the children. Then came the excuses. Some suddenly remembered important work. Others claimed their ranch was too small. A few simply climbed back onto their horses without saying goodbye. After weeks of rejection, Clara could no longer hide the sadness in her eyes. She looked down at her children and whispered the words she never wanted them to hear. No one wants a bride with 3 kids. Emma lowered her head, pretending not to cry. Tommy quietly kicked at the dirt while little Lucy hugged her rag doll tighter, too young to understand why her mother sounded so broken. Around them, townsfolk watched in silence. Some pitied them. Others simply accepted that life in the West was unfair. No one stepped forward. No one offered hope. Then another rider entered town. His horse moved slowly, carrying a tall cowboy with broad shoulders, weathered hands, and kind blue eyes hidden beneath a dusty hat. His name was Caleb Walker. For years he had lived alone on a ranch outside town, after losing both his parents and younger brother in separate tragedies. His ranch was successful. His barn was full. His field stretched farther than most men could ride before sunset. Yet every evening he returned to an empty house where only silence greeted him. The loneliness had become heavier with every passing season. Caleb noticed the small family before anyone noticed him. He saw not just the children, but how they stayed close together, protecting one another. He saw exhaustion on Clara's face and courage that refused to disappear despite everything life had taken from her. He dismounted, tied his horse, and walked calmly toward them. Several men standing outside the general store exchanged amused glances, expecting him to turn away the moment he realized she had 3 children. Instead, Caleb stopped directly in front of Clara. She looked up nervously, already preparing herself for another rejection. Before she could explain her situation, apologize for the children, or lower her expectations once again, Caleb smiled warmly. It wasn't the smile of a man feeling sorry for her. It was the smile of someone who had just found something precious. Clara sighed quietly and repeated the words that had haunted her for months. No one wants a bride with 3 kids. Caleb looked at Emma, who stood bravely despite her fear. He smiled at Tommy, who instinctively stepped in front of his sisters like a tiny protector. Finally, he gently waved at little Lucy, earning a shy smile in return. Then he looked back into Clara's tear-filled eyes and answered with complete sincerity, "I always wanted a big family." The street became silent. Conversation stopped. Even the horses seemed unusually still. Every person watching expected laughter or pity. Instead, they witnessed something they had almost forgotten existed. hope, and none of them realized that those simple words were only the beginning of a story that would soon transform not only one lonely cowboy and one struggling mother, but an entire frontier town forever. Caleb invited Clara and her 3 children to his ranch, not with grand promises, but with quiet kindness. Instead of asking about her past, he asked whether the children were hungry. He showed Emma a room with a window overlooking the fields, helped Tommy feed the horses, and placed little Lucy on the gentle old mare everyone called Daisy. For the first time in years, laughter echoed across the lonely ranch house. Clara watched from the porch, unsure whether this happiness was real or only another dream waiting to disappear. The townspeople whispered that Caleb was making a terrible mistake. Some warned him that raising another man's children would only bring hardship. Caleb simply smiled and returned to repairing fences, teaching Tommy how to throw a rope, and helping Emma plant flowers beside the house. Every evening, the family gathered around one table, sharing simple meals and stories. Slowly, the children stopped calling the ranch "your home" and began calling it "our home." Clara's guarded heart softened as she realized Caleb never treated her children as a burden. He treated them as the greatest blessing he had ever received. One quiet evening beneath a sky filled with stars, Clara apologized for bringing so much responsibility into his life. Caleb gently took her hand and said, "You didn't bring me burdens. You brought me the family I prayed for." Tears filled Clara's eyes as she finally understood that sometimes God doesn't send the love we expect. He sends the love we desperately need. And before long, the entire town would witness a wedding unlike anything they had ever seen. A few weeks later, the little church in Dry Creek was filled beyond capacity. The same people who had once whispered that no man would ever marry a widow, with 3 children, now stood quietly watching as Clara walked down the aisle. Emma carried wildflowers, Tommy proudly stood beside Caleb, and little Lucy scattered petals with a smile brighter than the morning sun. When the preacher asked Caleb if he accepted Clara and her children as his family, he answered without hesitation, "With all my heart." Tears flowed through the church as he knelt before the children and promised, "From this day forward, you'll never wonder if you're wanted again." The years that followed were filled with love instead of loneliness. The ranch became known as the happiest home in the valley, where laughter echoed across the fields and every traveler found a warm meal and an open door. Caleb proved that family is built by love, not by blood, and Clara finally understood that the right person doesn't fear your past. They embrace everyone who comes with it. The town never forgot the day one cowboy looked beyond a widow's struggles and saw the family he had always dreamed of. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes in true love and second chances. Remember, the greatest blessings often arrive disguised as responsibilities, and the people the world overlooks are sometimes the very ones meant to change your life forever.